Hello guys, how are you all? Welcome to my channel. So, today we are gonna see, what if female Kyubi becomes the Naruto's loyal slave, part 2, and, subscribe if you enjoy the video. Let's start the story. Outside the barrier, many people, both shinobi and civilians alike, had gathered around the strange object that was around the demon's den. Many were whispering about how the demon was free, that the end was near, and that they must repent with a virgin sacrifice. Those fools were quickly silenced and taken away or just outright ignored. Many of the shinobi had gathered around and were discussing possible ways to enter the barrier. While the civilians and shinobi were discussing all this, Sarutobi stood in front of the barrier to study it and try to understand what it was. Placing his hand on it, the old Hokage sense was telling a different story to what he was seeing. It looked similar to glass the way he could look through it and see the other side. However, it gave a strange warmth that was pulsing, as if energy was running through the thing. Nevertheless, despite how much it was similar to glass, nothing that was thrown at the strange orange light seemed to break through it. Removing his hand, Sarutobi looked at the building where his favorite blonde lived and was now most likely a demon for a monster. He had given the boy an apartment in this building because the orphanage refused to let him stay even under the threat of the Hokage, and young Naruto wouldn't last long on streets, so he gave him a place that was meant to be a safe haven for him. Now, it was most likely a grave for the poor child. Taking a deep breath, he removed his hand and turned to an Anbu member with a dog mask and silver hair behind him. Inu, report. The man nodded his head in response. Nothing new to report, Hokage-sama. All attempts to penetrate the barrier from any angle have failed. Sarutobi sighed. I see, tell your unit to prepare, we will have to assume the worst. The dog face was silent for a time. Hi Hokage-sama, and walked off. Sarutobi looked at the sky and noticed the light was coming and that it would soon be morning. Morning. Naruto's room. Naruto felt the sunlight from his window and tried to avoid the best he could, but that was difficult since there was something heavy on his chest. Opening his eyes, he noticed that there was something red and fuzzy on top of him. As he awoke more and could focus better, he noticed that the red fuzzball had two things sticking out of it and brushed his fingers onto them and caused them to twitch. Then the red fuzzball began to move a little to reveal the pale face of a girl who just smiled, and Morning Master. Still a little too early for Naruto's brain to function, so it responded by getting Naruto to scream and fall off the bed. Kyubi flinched at the loud thump she heard when her master had hit the floor and crawled over to the other side of the bed to check on him. Peeking over the side to check on her master, she asked the only thing she could master, "Are you okay?" Naruto was lying on the floor holding his head in pain due to the fall, and his headache only increased when his mind began putting the events of last night together. Eventually, his mind was able to put everything in order and he could remember what had happened and looked at the Kitsune demon looking at him with concern in her eyes. Naruto just smiled and rubbed his head. It's okay Kaiu-chan. I just told Naruto to stop as he noticed something missing with Kyubi and turned around to hide the blush on his face. Kyubi noticed this and began to worry she had done something wrong. Master. What's wrong? Naruto didn't answer, so Kyubi just moved closer. Master, I'm sorry for whatever I did, the fox demon said painfully, and this got to Naruto as he turned around. Kaiu-chan, you didn't do anything, it's just Naruto didn't get to finish his sentence again as his face turned a brighter red. Will you please put some clothes on? Kyubi, hearing this, began to pout. Do I have to, Master? Yes. Kyubi grabbed one of Naruto's dirty shirts and put it on, and while it was uncomfortable, it at least had her master's scent, something she very much enjoyed. Now that Naruto was able to look at his servant, he could see that the events of last night were true. In addition, he now had an all-powerful demon as his loyal subject. After letting his ego flare for a moment until the blonde stomach began to growl and kill the mood. Kyubi giggled at this. Are you hungry, Master? I can make you something if you like. Naruto smiled at this thanks to Kaiu-chan, and she walked off to the kitchen. Naruto just sighed, wondering what he was going to do now. He knew how a powerful demon was serving him, but now he had to think about the situation he was in. At this moment, he began to consider all the difficulties of his life and how they would not only affect his life, but Kyubi's as well. The first was that he was now living with another person in an apartment he barely fit in. The second was that his expenses such as food and clean water, which he could barely afford himself, were going to increase. The last was the fact she was the Kyubi no Kitsune, and while she wasn't the same demon that attacked the village 5 years ago, the villagers weren't going to care. They would see her as a threat and attack. Sighing and rubbing his temples due to the headache he was getting, Naruto decided that it was best to get some fresh air. While he was passing the kitchen, he saw Kyubi standing over his stove hard at work cooking something. While he couldn't tell what it was, it smelled great and it made his mouth water. Despite the temptation, he decided that it was best not to get in her way and began to the front door. Kaiu-chan, I'm heading out for a minute. Kitsune looked at her master and smiled. Okay, Master, breakfast will be ready soon. Naruto smiled at this and halfway through the door when he realized something, Kyuubi-chan, how do you know how to cook? Kyubi stopped what she was doing and looked at her master and plainly said, I don't know, and went back to work while Naruto just sighed since that appeared to be her answer to many things and just walked off. Outside apartment. Walking outside his home, Naruto went to check his morning mail to see if anything good had come in. When he reached the letterbox, he noticed a few people whispering behind him to see if someone was going to attack him. What he saw was a group of people, some civilians, others mostly wearing the wired masks Jai-sen said were important, he just thought they looked cool. After looking around, he also noticed an elderly man wearing white and had a funny hat on and was standing with the crowd. At the sight of the old man, Naruto began to smile at seeing the one of the few people in the village that was actually nice to him and began to run towards him. But Sarutobi began looking around the area, most of the frantic civilians were taken away, and his top people were looking into the strange barrier that covered the apartment complex. After an entire night of research they had made progress, and the old Hokage began to fear the worst. Naruto, I'm sorry. With lack of sleep, Sarutobi began to make his leave when he heard the sound of footsteps behind him. Turning around he noticed a small blonde-haired boy running towards him. Sarutobi frowned at this knowing that it was obviously a trick of the demon he saw last, using the form of its last victim to torment them. As the creature came closer to the barrier, he knew it was only a matter of time before it would attack, and Sarutobi had signaled his men to be ready. As the fake drew near the barrier ready for any form of attack the demon would try. However, what the old man got was something he would imagine a demon would do, as the blonde-haired boy running never until he had slammed face first into the wall of orange light, most likely knocking him unconscious. At the sight of this display, Sarutobi was left speechless for a moment and then he found himself starting to laugh at the realization has to be Naruto, no demon would do something that stupid. Soon the blonde-haired boy had awoken and rubbed his head due to the pain he felt when he hit whatever he had hit. Looking around he noticed an orange wall of light that was in front of him and the old man on the other side of it. Placing his hand on the orange wall and seeing that he couldn't go through it, he looked at Sarutobi with a curious look. Hey, old man, what's with the wired wall? Sarutobi got over the shock of seeing the boy alive and got serious with Naruto. Are you hurt in any way? The blonde just looked at the old man confused and annoyed. I'm a fine old man, now tell me why you put a wall up for me. Sarutobi didn't show, but he relaxed when he heard that the boy didn't want to be hurt but still didn't answer him about the wall. Naruto could see that the old man wasn't going to tell him about the orange wall. Okay, don't tell me to go have breakfast with Kyuubi-chan instead. Hearing this, Sarutobi felt his heart skip a beat. Naruto, what did you just say? Naruto gave a small glare, showing he was bothered by the fact that the old man would keep asking questions, but never answer any of them. Walking back to the wall, he practically shouted, I'm going to have breakfast with Kyuubi-chan, you're losing your hearing, old man. Sarutobi missed that last part, as his mind was only focused on the words Kyuubi-chan, and looked at the boy Naruto. Did you say Kyuubi-chan, as in the Kyubi no Kitsune? Naruto just nodded his head, yep, we met last night and became friends after I let her out of her cage. All went silent at the words that had come out of the young blonde's mouth. Well, everyone was silent until Sarutobi responded with you did what? At the loud volume of the old man's voice Naruto and a few others had to hold their ears due to the pain. Naruto glared at Sarutobi. Thanks old man, now I'm going deaf. Sarutobi didn't see the hammer in this as he glared harshly at the boy Naruto. Do you realize how serious this is? Why on earth would you release that monster? This time it was Naruto's turn to glare. Don't tell her that Kyuubi-chan is nice and wouldn't hurt anyone. Sarutobi kept his glare. Did that beast tell you about Naruto? Naruto nodded at this. Naruto, that thing is a demon and demons lie to get what they want. The Kyubi is no exception. Hearing this Naruto saw red. Shut up, you haven't even met her and you already decided she is dangerous, so shut up. Hearing everyone went quiet, even Sarutobi not sure how to reply to what the boy had said. Old man, you keep telling me that we should never judge people before we meet them, so could you at least talk to her please old man? Hearing the boy's plea shook his head, knowing that he was going to regret this. Alright, I will meet this demon Naruto, only because I owe you an explanation about you and the Kyubi. Now can you bring down the barrier? Naruto looked at the old man. I thought you set this up, old man. The old simply shook his head with a no. Naruto saw this and smiled. It must have been Kyuubi-chan. All I have to ask about this when I get the chance. Ask me what, master. This caused Naruto to jump straight to the arms of whoever held him in a bridal style. The blonde boy looked at his demon servant with a glare. Kyuubi-chan, you nearly gave me a heart attack. The demon looked away and her fox ears began to drop. Sorry master, it won't happen again. Hearing the sadness in her tone made Naruto regret his words. I'm sorry Kyuubi-chan, you just surprised me. The demon nodded at this and began to perk up, glad to know that her master wasn't mad at her. "So you forgive me?" the blonde asked, while the demon just smiled. "Of course, master." The moment between the two was soon ruined when Sarutobi gave a loud cough and brought the two out of their moment, much to the dismay of who was rather enjoying herself. Naruto, however, remembered he still had business with the old man and looked at Kyubi. Kyu-chan, you can put me down now." Kyubi noticed she had been holding her master for some time and blushed a little when she realized just how long and put him down. Naruto looked back at the old man and saw two things he had never seen before on the old man's face. One was a great and immense fear, the other was an undying rage while he was looking at Kyubi. Feeling a headache already coming on, Naruto decided to get this mess over and done with. "Kyu-chan. Were you the one who set up this barrier?" The demon fox looked at her master with a smile. "Yes, master, I created it last night before I put you to bed." "Do you like it?" she asked the last part shyly while Naruto thought it over. "Well, I do like the color, but do you think you could take it down for a second?" Kyubi looked at him confused. "Why?" Naruto just sighed. "Well, I needed to talk to the old man for a minute so I could let it go." Kyubi looked at the old man and then began to glare. "I know you were with the people that were attacking the master and tried to attack me." Sarutobi didn't say anything but kept his glare on the demon master. "I can't let down the barrier. This man will try to hurt you if I do." Naruto just rolled his eyes while he did appreciate Kyubi's concern for him. It was a little bit annoying. Kyubi could see the frustration in Naruto's eyes and began to grow concerned that she would anger her master. Kyubi looked back at the old man and then at her master. She didn't want him to be upset with her again, but she also didn't want the people from last night to attack him again. So, instead of lowering the barrier, she did something else. Sarutobi stood in front of the barrier waiting for the demon to lower it. He was no fool, he had his anbu in position ready for anything that the demon tried. Well confused as to why this monster would do anything, Naruto says he was also curious as to why it would even listen to the blonde in the first place. As he saw the demon lift her hand, he assumed she was going to lower the barrier. Instead, two walls of energy shot out of the barrier past Sarutobi and formed a third wall behind him. He then looked up and noticed the energy then formed a ceiling above him. He was now boxed in. Everyone looked at their now trapped leader or at the demon that had imprisoned him. Even Naruto looked a bit concerned as he was wondering what Kyubi was trying to do as she moved her hand a little more. Doing this caused an opening to appear in front of the barrier and allowed Sarutobi to enter. Once he was inside, the opening quickly closed behind him. Now he stood in front of the two children, one he saw as a grandson. The other was the monster, though a bit smaller, that took the lives of many people, some which were very precious to him. Looking at the demon in front of him, he couldn't help but remember the night his beloved village was attacked by a monster. Every time he thought back to that memory, he would always feel the lust for blood and destruction in the air and the need for death with the monster's bright yellow eyes. Shaking the memory away, Sarutobi focused on what was in front of him. Looking at this demon, he noticed that something was different between this demon and the monster from before. It was the eyes that told him everything, as they were a reflection to the solar, so the old saying was, and looking into this demon's eyes told him something different. Looking into them now, he saw not the twisted yellow eyes of malice and evil, but instead were blood red, but showed no malice, no desire to kill, but an innocence that could only be found in a child. Taking a second look at the demon, he noticed something he hadn't done before with the demon. She stood her ground waiting for him to make a move. Her legs, arms, and even her tails were set to strike or dodge if necessary. Her eyes were narrow and alert, showing that she didn't trust him. The most surprising thing was that she placed herself between him and Naruto, obviously keeping him away from the boy, as if she was protecting him. If that were the case, it would explain why she kept calling him master. Could Naruto have tamed this creature? Shaking his head, Sarutobi didn't want to fight a demon, even a child, so he would have to place his trust in Naruto. Taking a deep breath, he put on his best smile and looked at the young blonde Naruto. "Do you have any green tea?" Naruto, Kyubi, and just about everyone had to do a double take at this. Sarutobi, however, just kept up his smile, seeing that this little barrier of your servants has kept me up most of the night, and sadly I haven't had my tea today. Would you kindly lend an old man a cup of tea? Naruto smiled at this and nodded his head. "Sure thing, old man, let go." With that, the boy ran off while Kyubi stood her ground, never taking her eyes off Sarutobi. Once Naruto was out of sight, the demon pointed a finger at the old man. "Look at you, old fool, I don't know what you want or what you're trying to do, but know that if you try to hurt my master in any way I will kill." At those last words, Sarutobi felt a shiver up and down his spine. He could tell that she meant what she said, and with the way her eyes began to glow red, she would have no problems doing it. The question was, did she really have the power to take him on? A better question was, did he have strength to take her on? However, the tension that was now built was soon forgotten, as Naruto was shouting from his apartment window, "Kyuubi-chan, is this supposed to be on fire?" With that look of distrust, that Kyubi was gone and replaced with a childlike look of worry. "Oh no, I forgot to turn off the stove," she shouted as she ran to the building. "Hang on, master." Sarutobi just gave a slight chuckle. This was going to be an interesting meeting for the old man. Sarutobi had been a ninja nearly all of his life, and in that time he had seen many things in his long life, things that were beautiful, horrific, amazing, and tragic. However, even with all of his experience, nothing prepared him for the sight in front of him. He remembered the night the Kyubi attacked. He had remembered the destruction it had caused and the death of so many people that happened because of it. He remembered seeing both the life of his predecessor and his wife taken away in order to stop the monster that was trying to destroy their home and give Naruto a future. To this day, Sarutobi is haunted by nightmares of the demon fox being released and taking not only Naruto's life, but the lives of everyone in the village as well. He had been tormented by thousands of possible what-if scenarios that could have happened if such a thing ever occurred. However, what he was seeing in front of them was not one of them. Naruto was holding a crying Kyubi in his arms and rubbing the top of her head, mostly on her ears, since she seemed to like that. "It's okay, Kyubi-chan." While he was trying, Kyubi wasn't taking it well as she kept her face into Naruto's shoulder. "I'm so sorry, hic, master." Sarutobi couldn't tell what was bothering him more than the somewhat heartwarming innocence of a poor boy he looked after like a grandchild, or the smell of burnt food that was filling his old nose. Seeing that the demon for whatever reason wasn't an apparent threat, for now anyway, he decided it was time to break up this heart-filled moment and have a talk with Naruto. So the old man made a loud cough and got the attention of both the boy and demon Naruto. "About that tea, and we still need to talk." Naruto nodded and turned to Kyubi. "Kyubi-chan, can you make some green tea for me and the old man here?" Kyubi looked at the old Hokage with still not trusting and even a little upset that he made the master let go of her. "Why should I make tea for this old monkey?" Naruto just let out a frustrated sigh. "Kyubi-chan," he said with an authoritative tone which caused Kyubi to flinch and admitted defeat. "Yes, master," and went to prepare the tea. Sarutobi just looked at the two, clearly not expecting the Kyubi that had attacked his village to be so obedient towards its jailer. This along with other questions and concerns began to invade his mind as he looked over at the young blonde and the demon who was pouring the hot tea carefully into the cup in front of him. She then came over and placed what looked to be a cracked and somewhat dirty cup and began to pour the tea into it, spilling it a bit and letting it overflow onto the table and near him. Sarutobi just looked at the demon who just gave an innocent looking smirk and asked, "Is something wrong, old monkey?" in an innocent voice. Ignoring her, Sarutobi took a sip and found it to be somewhat pleasant to the taste. After a few more sips he decided it was time to get to business. He looked at the boy who was having another cup of tea from the demon and cleared his thoughts. "Naruto, we need to discuss your vassal." The two looked at the old man confused as they both titled their heads and asked vassals. Sarutobi just chuckled at this. A vassal is a person who is a personal servant who dedicates their lives to serving a lord or noble till their death. Naruto just sat and thought, "I guess it does sound better than a slave. What do you think, Kyubi-chan?" Kyubi just looked at her master with a smile. "Whatever makes you happy, master. Would you like some more tea?" Naruto just smiled and nodded his head while Kyubi just poured more tea and Sarutobi just chuckled at the two. However, he went back to being serious. "Naruto, I hope you understand the trouble you have caused by allowing the Kyubi out of its cell and how the village will react when they get word of this." The blonde just looked and the old man was concerned. Sarutobi noticed that knew he would regret that what happened 5 years ago was horrific and many people still bear the scars of that night well within them. Grief is a powerful thing and can drive even the kindest man to commit to revenge without a second thought, and, as for your vassal, many in this village will demand her life in exchange for the lives of all the loved ones that were lost. Naruto looked at Kyubi, concerned, while the demon just looked down at the ground, refusing to make eye contact. Naruto just looked at the old man with a glare. "You can't do that, old man." Sarutobi just sighed to Naruto, "I'm sorry, but I must do it for the safety of the village, and the demon must pay for the crimes it committed." Naruto just slammed his hands against the table, "But Kyubi-chan couldn't have attacked the village. She was locked in a cell all her life until I let her out." This caused Sarutobi to pause and explain. Naruto just looked at Kyubi, who was curious as well. "Kyubi-chan said she was in her cage all her life, so if she had there all this time she couldn't have attacked the village. Hell, she's just as old as I am, old man. You can't punish her for something another demon did. That's not fair." Sarutobi could tell this was going to be difficult for the boy to understand, but he had to what was best for the village until he released something Naruto had said. "Naruto-kun, you said that the Kyubi was locked in her cell this whole time, that she has no knowledge of anything from before, correct?" Naruto just nodded his head real fast and looked at Kyubi, who just stood there and thought, red hair. The two looked at her confused. I remember a woman with red hair, she was warm and held me for a time, but she soon left. Naruto looked at Kyubi with confusion, but Sarutobi had a look of alarm on his face that he quickly hid it and looked at the blonde Naruto. I need to assemble the council right away and let the rest of the village know about this. I want you and your vassal to stay here until I call you. Naruto nodded his head but then realized something. Hey old man, can we get some ramen first? I'm hungry. Sarutobi just gave the young blonde a stern look. No, this has to be taken care of right away Naruto. The blonde just glared at the old man, but I'm hungry, old man. Sarutobi just gave him a stern look, but the blonde just returned with a sour glare. You just don't want to get me any because you're cheap and want to read that stupid book of yours. The old Hokage just gave an angry and somewhat alarmed look. I'm not cheap Naruto, you're just a glutton and a bottomless pit, and what were you doing in my private studies, you brat? As the two argued, Kyubi just stood there confused. What's ramen? After enough time arguing, the old man and young blonde finally stopped after the Hokage made a valid threat to cut off Naruto's ramen supply. That shut him up. After that the old man began to leave. Kyubi began to follow him so he could get past the barrier and away from her master. The whole time they were walking, Kyubi kept glaring at the old man, who turned to her and asked if there was a problem. Kyubi just narrowed her eyes. The master doesn't like you, so I don't like you, you stupid old monkey. The old village leader just looked at the young demon blackly and then smiled and even began to laugh a bit, much to the confusion of the young kitsune. The old man just smiled and said it's nice for Naruto to have finally found a friend. Kyubi just looked at the old man, unable to hide her confusion, as she asked friend. Hearing this, the old man gave the kind smile he was well known for throughout the younger generation. A friend is someone special to you, someone you know you can trust with your life, and more, they are someone who is with you in times both good and bad. They are always with you, no matter what. The demon just looked at the old man, stunned by this, as he kept walking away, never seeing the huge grin on his face. Eventually the two had reached the barrier and saw a whole squad of Anbu waiting on the other side, just waiting for anything. Kyubi just looked at the old man, still confused, but it didn't stop her from opening a small hole in the barrier. It was clear she wasn't going to let it down anytime soon and was only going to let the Hokage out. As the old man was walking, Kyubi called out to him, "Hey, old monkey." Sarutobi just turned to the demon and noticed a look of discomfort. You said I was master's friend, does that make it special to him? The old man just looked at the demon with a smile. You're his first friend, which means you have a special place in his heart. Hearing this, Kyubi's ears shot straight up and a large blush appeared on her face and the hole to the barrier closed rather fast. The old leader just smiled at this and turned to one of the subordinates to assemble the council. Naruto has caused yet another headache. Back in the barrier, Kyubi pondered the words of the old man as she walked back towards her master home, never noticing the extra skip in her step while she walked. When she walked back into the apartment, she saw her master back at the table, his head lying on it, looking depressed. The fox demon walked over to the master to see what was wrong. Is something the matter? The young blonde just looked at the demon with watery eyes. There's no ramen, Kyu-chan. Kyubi just looked at her master, feeling pity and sadness from the dead look in his eye. It's okay master, I'm sure we can get you some ramen later when the old monkey returns. Naruto just looked at his demon with even sadness, but I'll die if I don't get any ramen. Hearing this, Kyubi turned pure white in fear. Master will die without ramen, she thought to herself, and came to a decision as she looked towards her master. Don't worry master, I'll save you, and made a rush to the door. The young blonde just looked at the door confused. Outside the barrier, many of the Jonin had left to guard the Hokage on his way back to the tower, but the ones left behind were not happy that they had to guard the barrier. This sucks, one of them shouted. His fellow guards him with a questioning look. After all this time, we finally have the proof to get rid of that filthy demon brat, but instead of doing what must be done, we're stuck guarding not one, but two monsters. What the hell is the Hokage thinking? His partner looked at him with a mixture of pity and anger. I'm sure Hokage-sama knows what he is doing, so I'd advise you to watch your mouth. And second, Naruto isn't a monster, he's just a kid. After what we just saw, that should be obvious, even to an idiot. The other guard wasn't convinced and just scoffed angrily. Before anything else could be said between the two, the barrier began to glow and started to swirl around the middle of one of the walls. The shinobi guarding it stood ready for anything until a hand appeared from beyond the barrier, followed by another, and soon a head, and then an entire body was soon visible and just sitting there. Kyubi looked down at all the men who were guarding the barrier, and, as much as she wanted to teach them a lesson about trying to hurt her master, she knew she didn't have the time. She had to go out and get some ramen for her master, or he would most likely die a horrible death, in her mind anyway. She began to channel her energy into the barrier and let it build up until, as the guards were about to make a move, a bright light suddenly appeared and flashed from where Kyubi was sitting and shot her off into the distance. The only thing anyone heard besides the ringing was a loud banzai in the background. several miles above the village. High in the air, the Kyubi looked down at the village of the leaf in awe at just how large a place it was. She kept her eyes open for any signs of raiment that she could give to her master and make him happy. However, much to her annoyance, she noticed one thing about the village: all these buildings look the same up here, and what the hell is ramen? Seeing that she wasn't going to get any further in her search, she began to notice she was beginning to fall and looked around for a place to land. She noticed a large tree with an open area below her and began to adjust herself so she could land on it, and after that she would begin her search. After getting the angel right, she managed to land on the top tree with ease and began to think of what to do next. She heard something from below and looked to see a group of children who were surrounding a small girl whose back was against a tree. She could tell the girl was scared and the other children had a grin on their faces she didn't like. Seeing that this wasn't her problem, she decided to just forget about it and move on with her task and gather the raiment for her master. Until she was suddenly stopped by an image of Naruto. He was lying bloodied and surrounded by people with the same grin the children had all around him appeared in her mind and forced her to stop. Looking back at the group and onto the next set of trees, she found it hard to decide what to do until she noticed the leader of the group pull out something and forced her to act. But the group of children finally managed to get their prey into a corner, and the leader of the group stepped forward. "And we finally got you, you Hyuga freak." The young Hyuga stood there with tears in her eyes and cowered in fear as she tried to find a way to escape, but sadly there was none. The leader stood right in front of the young girl, his twisted smile never leaving his face, as he rose his hand and smacked her across the face. "You Hyuga think you're so special because of your freaky eyes, don't ya?" he asked her, and when she didn't answer he smacked her again a bit harder. "I asked you a question." The Hyuga trembled in fear and tried to answer and no, only to receive an even harder slap to the face that had knocked her to the ground. She tried to get up only for the leader to place his foot on her head and keep her pinned down. As the Hyuga tried to get up, the leader eventually took his foot off her and kicked her. After that he and his friends started to laugh out loud as the young Hyuga began to cry. Looking around, she saw an opening between two of the older boys and thought she could make a run for it since the leader was too busy laughing to notice her. Seeing her chance, she got to her feet, but before she could take her first step, she noticed a sharp blade in front of her. Looking over to the leader, who was just smiling while holding the blade, "Where do you think you're going? We're not done talking yet, Hyuga." Many of the other children began to whisper a bit nervously about just how far their leader was going, but he just ignored them. "Nice, isn't it? I took it from my older brother when he wasn't looking and thought it would be fun to try it out on something or someone." Hinata began to shiver in fear as the leader kept moving the blade back and forth just inches away from her face. Before the leader could make any more threats, a reddish-orange blur passed by him and forced a step back due to the sight in front of him. What he saw looked like a girl, but she had strange dog-like ears and 9 tails behind her, and it didn't help that her ruby-red eyes were focused straight at him. Without even realizing it, the leader figured out that he had stopped breathing and took a breath only for the blade he was holding to suddenly break into several pieces like it had been cut. Looking at the thing in front of him and seeing the 9 tails in either, he soon figured out what was in front of him. "It's the Kyubi, the demon that blonde freak had inside him. It's come here to kill us." He said this frantically, looking at the other children only to notice they had already left and that he was now alone to deal with a monster. Holding the severed blade in front of him and shaking in fear, he said, "Stay back, monster." Kyubi just looked at the poor fool and front and put a smirk on her and flexed her claws and dropped pieces of metal between her fingers. When the leader saw this, he suddenly realized that it was once a part of the blade he was now carrying. Kyubi gave the human another smirk and showed off her claws one last time before she crouched down on all fours and lined up her back looking like a predator ready to pounce on its prey. The leader, seeing the danger he was in, did the only thing he could and dropped the blade and ran as fast as he could. Once he was out of sight, Kyubi looked towards the person the kids were picking on and noticed something about her that caught her interest. Hinata wasn't scared anymore. No, she was terrified for her life at this point. In front of her was the demon Kyubi no Kitsune, the demon that had attacked and nearly destroyed the village years ago. The members of the clan who had actually served that night had told frightening stories of the monster fox and what it had done to their allies and loved ones. Now, that same demon that had killed so many was now standing in front of her ready to attack and kill her as well. The demon still stood on all fours and began moving towards her, its tail straight, its blood-red eyes locked onto her as it moved closer and closer to her until it was in arm's reach. Hinata, not seeing any way out, closed her eyes and waited for the monster to get her and for the end to come. At least that's what she waited for. After what seemed like hours, nothing happened and Hinata began to open her eyes, and to her horror the demon was sitting right in front of her and was staring her down. Trembling with fear, the demon just looked at her with a curious look on her face and began to lift its hand towards her. Soon she noticed a clawed finger was getting closer and closer to her until it stopped, and a grin began to form on the demon's mouth as it said, "You have pretty eyes." The end. Thanks for watching my video, see you next time, till then sayonara.